Omar, I appreciate your time. Are you comfortable with these restrictions being lifted in New South Wales from Friday? Quite a significant announcement there from the Premier.
Yeah, it's a sign that the approach that New South Wales has been taking is working. We've now got quite a number of days with no community transmission, and it is probably time to start slowly letting things get back to normal, but remembering that the risk is still there, and it's absolutely critically important that people with any symptoms do go and get themselves tested, because it's only by getting those tests that the government will know what's going on and be able to set the restrictions appropriately.
Yeah, and we did hear quite a bit about that testing issue in New South Wales. The New South Wales Health Minister in that news conference saying that the levels certainly aren't adequate, were his words. We've also seen wastewater testing showing COVID in some regions in western and southwestern parts of Sydney. When you add in those factors, how worried should we be that there could be some of these undetected strains of COVID out there, chains rather, of COVID out there still in the community?
It's certainly a possibility, and that's why there is still a level of restrictions being proposed, only going back to a 4 square metre rule, which is still a reasonable level of restrictions that will continue to protect people in New South Wales. The wastewater testing isn't foolproof because, of course, it does pick up people who are still shedding a bit of virus after they've actually recovered from the illness. But it's a sign that there's certainly the possibility of virus out there in the community, and that means we must continue to be vigilant.
We're seeing a big campaign being rolled out today by the federal government, essentially convincing Australians that the vaccine rollout is safe. What's your message, though, to those people who are still feeling very cautious? They're worried the vaccine isn't safe enough or concerned that there are too many unknowns. And there are a lot of unknowns still, aren't there, particularly when it comes to the impact of the vaccine on elderly people, pregnant women. The data isn't conclusive on some of those fronts.
Yeah, we don't yet have conclusive details the way we do about most of the other vaccines in our program, but what we do have a fair bit of data on is actually the safety and of the vaccines that are either coming to Australia or that have already been approved. The safety data is excellent, and we have very little concern about unexpected safety issues arising during rollout. Of course, the government will continue to be vigilant, as is normally the case, and continue to watch, and if there are any issues that emerge, they'll be picked up very quickly and the system will respond. Some of those other unknowns around whether the vaccines are safe for pregnant women, they're complex questions because the the studies haven't actually been done in a robust way yet. And because we don't have a huge amount of COVID in Australia, the risk-benefit equation is different here to what it is, say, in the UK, where the general recommendation has been for pregnant women to have the vaccine. What that means, though, is that we'll have data coming soon, and I suspect the recommendations in Australia will continue to evolve as we keep going through this pandemic.
The federal government seems pretty confident we won't see the sort of supply issues that are facing other countries, particularly the EU having a lot of problems in terms of accessing the vaccine that they have ordered. The federal opposition here has some concerns about our plans for a rollout. It's accused the government essentially of mismanaging the vaccine contracts, saying we've got too many eggs in too few baskets. Is that unfair at this point?
We are concerned about vaccine supply coming out of Europe, which is where all of our vaccine will be coming from in the first instance. And it is certainly possible that if the EU puts on an export restriction, that no matter what contracts the manufacturer may have with the Australian government, they may not be able to fulfil them. So that is a risk, and it's one that the government have been aware of from the start, hence the local manufacturing capability for the AstraZeneca vaccine. But unfortunately, that vaccine is not yet ready for approval in Australia, and obviously it hasn't yet reached full manufacturing potential. We don't have a lot of information about what that rollout would look like, but it is a way that the government have hedged their bets. Would we like to see some more vaccine options? Yes, we would. I think if we had access to the Moderna vaccine and potentially to some of the others that are looking positive in the future, that would make us more comfortable. The government is relying on the Novavax vaccine, which is another promising vaccine that could be manufactured here in Australia. But CSL have told us that if they're making AstraZeneca, they can't make Novavax at the same time. And that means that we could still be subject to the vagaries of the international vaccine supply to get vaccine in Australia. And that does make us a little bit vulnerable.
Just finally, what about this idea of a vaccine passport for Australians? Is that something the AMA is backing?
We're not backing a vaccine passport at this stage because none of these vaccines have been shown to actually reduce the chance of you catching the COVID virus, nor transmitting it to other people. We'll get more data about that in time. But right now, having been vaccinated doesn't actually mean anything in terms of the chances of you bringing the illness into another country. Once we have data about herd immunity and how the vaccines work in that respect, then there may be a place for some sort of vaccine passport, but I think that's some months away as yet.
AMA President Omar Khorshid, appreciate you joining us on Sky News. Thank you.
Cheers, Ash.